right, we'll call this meeting to order of the Board of Supervisors, Ventura County, February 12th, 2008. Can we do the roll call, Roberta?
Supervisor Long. Supervisor Parks. Supervisor Bennett.
Here.
Supervisor Flynn. And Supervisor Coy.
Here. We'll have our moment of affirmation. Pastor Dan Green's here. Yes?
He's not here.
Not here.
We'll make sure.
Okay, we'll move on, and then we'll do our Pledge of Allegiance. And Supervisor Flynn?
Ready to begin, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chair, I'd ask that we move the minutes, continue the minutes of December 11th for the next meeting.
Got a motion and a second. Can we do a vote? Are we waiting on? We're going to vote? There we go. Okay. Two more. It should be on the bottom. Is it on the bottom there?
He didn't have the item up at all.
Okay.
Hey, Robert.
Are you voting yes, sir? I'll do it.
Yeah, I am.
We'll get a little help there. Okay. Okay. So we got that. We'll do agenda review.
Thank you, Chairman Foy. Item number 13 is, it's been requested for that item to be continued. Item number 22, there's a revised board letter related to the organization numbers. I think you've received that in your packet. We'd like you to hear item 32 in conjunction with item 31. You may recall last week we heard from the assessor. Item 32 is the follow-up that your board requested. Item 34, there's an addendum agenda added to closed session.
Okay. Does anybody else have any question on the agenda? No? Okay. We have a no problem with it. Everybody's okay with continuing item 13 for, I think it's, we don't, 2 weeks, right? Okay. Sounds great. Okay.
Second.
You ready? Did you get your thing working? Okay, then we'll vote. It looks like it's working. This isn't working? Technology, huh? Okay. So now that, are we, okay, there we go. All right, we'll move on to our consent item, agenda. Do we have a motion to accept this consent?
Move consent. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We have a vote. Okay, we have public comments. We have one person to speak, Carol Dean Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Ms. Cohen. I remember years ago I would come here and there was a person by the name of Carol Lobear. I believe he was in John Flynn's office. I think you promised to put his name on the bridge on Victoria, and it's never got there. So I guess the name Carol You just can't get more unusual than that to have two of us and back down to one. So, Mr. Chair, I'm going to be quoting the newspaper, and I apologize for the language, but it's in the First Amendment. And
You can always just do bleeps like they do on television too. How's that sound?
Okay, good. Maybe I'll just. Okay, I think maybe you can fill in the blank then. And we're safe because Kathleen Wilson isn't here. Our new city attorney of Ventura, it's obvious he got the job in Ventura, so he was going to give his neighbor a going away present. So he goes out and lets his dog do the doggy thing on her lawn. She comes out and objects. So she had to call the police. This is what the police quoted the city attorney in Ventura by telling her that if she touched his dog that he would kick her blank. Unquote. He goes on to say in the police report, calling his neighbor psychotic. Then he has to write a letter of apology. He's on a 1-year probation from Boulder. I'm going to send the Boulder DA information that he's just come out here and been the lawbreaker that he was back there. Here's another quote. He said, quote, that every citizen has the right to contact the police for whatever reason they see fit. Unquote. That's our current city attorney in the city of Ventura in Ventura County. Well, I live in a city that has a charter. And Section 1501 says to violate that charter is a misdemeanor. But our district attorney, this is a state penal code. But our district attorney don't give a shit. He don't give a damn. That's our Ventura County district attorney. Section 1500, shall is mandatory. Section 802, powers and duty of the city manager to see that all laws, provisions of this charter are enforced. Section 704, the regular meetings of the city council, no citizen shall be denied the right personally to present grievance. All violations of our city charter, all penal codes, but our district attorney refuses to follow the law that he swore to uphold. So he was only making $137,000 in Boulder, so he comes to Ventura with for $237,000, and the city manager is only making $160,000. So I seen a poem. $230,000 versus $160,000. The cowardly lion lives in the land of Oz. Ventura city attorney in his $237,000 a year job. Ariel Colon from Boulder, Colorado is gone. He's on 1-year probation. Give this dog a bone. Beverly Potter turned her sprinklers on. This cowardly lion cussed her. It's 911 on the phone. Ariel Colon then kicked off her sprinkler heads. I'm going to Ventura, the cowardly lion said. Beverly Potter knew how to dial the 911 number. I'm going to Ventura, where the citizens are much dumber. Ariel Colon, now on 1-year probation here in Ventura, he continues his lies and distortations. The cowardly lion lives in the land of Oz. Poor Rick Cole stuck in his $160,000 a year job. You know what he tried to do to get
Right on time.
Right on time.
Good timing. Thank you. We'll move to board comments. That was our only card. And Supervisor Long, I got you ready?
Sure. Good morning. My comments are limited to this list to ask that we adjourn in memory of constituents from the 3rd District. Thank you.
Supervisor Parks?
Thank you. I wanted to note that next week is the Tour of California by Amgen, sponsored by Amgen. It's a professional cycle race that will be going up from the top of the state down to the bottom, and it's a very exciting and equivalent to the Tour de France in France. So I think we're really fortunate to have that, and I look forward to it. I also wanted to, I had mentioned at the last comments that I had a event featuring maglev, and I didn't really say what maglev is. It stands for magnetic levitation. It's these trains that run with magnets, and it was very informative. We had a project manager from SCAG, Southern California Association of Governments, come and speak about their proposal looking at connecting the region's airports with these magnetic levitation trains. And the city of Los Angeles just recently agreed to sign up on a JPA with other municipalities to look at doing a spur from the ports, and that will help to carry cargo. One of the benefits of that is that it is privately, the proposal is to have it privately funded by a company called American Maglev that will operate it and build it. So that's exciting. In addition, I would just ask that the board go ahead and close and honor the people on this list, and I will submit it to the clerk. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Bennett?
Thank you. Just like to ask the board to adjourn in memory of the people on this list, and I'd like to call one of them out, and that's the mother of Mark Suma, who works here in the county as a management analyst too in the CEO's Office of Community Development. And Mrs. Suma worked for Ventura County Adult Education as a teaching assistant. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Supervisor Flynn?
Yes, excuse me, I'd ask the board to adjourn in memory of people on this list, and along with these adjournments to remember Judge Jerome Berenson, who recently passed away.
Thanks, sir. I too would like to adjourn in memory of the person on here who had served 21 years in our armed forces. Also, last week I talked about what Moore Park High School had done their decathlon. I'd like to officially say they came away with the first and second in their quiz. They're heading, that was a countywide, now they're heading to Sacramento in March for their statewide, and then hopefully April to the Nationals. Also, Simi Valley basketball team, boys basketball team, won their Marimoni League. And I will be out of the state on Friday through Monday of this coming week. And that's what I have, and so thank you for that. Now, no other comments, then we'll move on to our regular agenda. And we'll start with 27, our harbor.
Good morning, members of the board, Lynn Krieger and Ms. Robinson. Lynn Krieger from the Harbor Department. We have a very straightforward lease amendment here for you today. This is with Marine Emporium Landing, which is rapidly, if you come out now, you will see windows going rapidly into that building. So we're headed toward completion. Replaces the county's obligation to construct a promenade with the lessee's ability to construct it for the same or less cost in exchange for rec credits. And we believe this is going to be a more efficient way. We were obligated to do the concrete work. He was obligated to do electrical, lighting, benches, so forth. So this will make it easier to coordinate as well.
Great. We have a motion, a first and a second. Any questions? Seeing no questions, and then we'll vote. Thank you very much. And we'll go to our healthcare agency, number 28.
Good morning, Chairman Foy, members of the board, Mrs. Johnson. Mrs. Robinson. Melanie Roy from the Behavioral Health Department. Item 28 is seeking your approval and authorization for the Behavioral Health Department to sign the new state DMH standard agreement for MHSA, and also to authorize the director to sign and accept future MHSA allocations and amendments related to MHSA applications previously presented and approved by your board. If you have any questions,
Do we have any questions here on this? And do we have a motion?
Second.
We have a second. Thanks, Supervisor Parks.
thank you.
and then we'll vote. Thank you. Okay. Great. We'll move then to number 29.
Good morning, Chairman Foy, members of the board, Mrs. Robinson, Catherine Rodriguez, Healthcare Agency, CFO. This is a request for your board to ratify and approve an agreement with Ventura Regional Sanitation District. This agreement will provide a continued service for the healthcare agency and Ventura County Medical Center to the employees' sanitation districts, employees for their physicals, immunizations, and such. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. We can vote. There we go. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And we'll move to the assessor. Now let's go to
32. if you
32
would,
first.
please.
We'll go to 32
Yeah.
first.
Morning, Supervisor Foy, members of the board, Ms. Robinson, Matt Carroll with the County Executive Office, and after 10 years, that sounds a little strange. Item 32 presents the requested follow-up and analysis your board asked for with regard to the increasing number of property tax assessment appeals here at the county. Specifically, our department met with and analyzed the process as it impacted 4 additional departments in addition to that impact that the assessor brought forth a couple weeks ago. As you can see by the analysis, although each of those 4 departments was impacted by some degree, primarily it's the clerk of the board at this time that's realizing the greatest impact. The clerk of the board is closing in on almost 1 FTE worth of additional work as a result of the 139% increase, and that's for the current fiscal year of assessment appeals. So as a result of that, at this time we're recommending that 1 fixed-term additional position be approved for the clerk of the board for a period of 18 months. The other offices are impacted to a significantly less degree at this point in time, so as a result we're not requesting anything for those offices at this point in time, but if that changes, we'll be back likely in the fall would be the soonest that would occur with recommendations for the other departments. We're also recommending that the funding for this position be granted from or be funded by a combination of the Assessment Appeals Finding of Fact Fee Trust Fund, say that 5 times quick, and the Property Tax Loan Grant Trust Fund, both of which are available for use at this time at your board's discretion. So with that, I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Do we have any questions?
I'd go ahead and move approval and just note that here's one of probably several examples to come where the economy is going down. As a result of this one, housing prices are going down, so we need to do more assessment appeals, and it's costing us more as a result. So it's just one of those features when the economy goes down, it sometimes costs us more as a result.
Yes. Supervisor Long?
Yes, I'll certainly support the motion, and I thank staff for the additional review to see what impacts there are now to other services, and I think that's something we should always take a look at whenever we have such a spike in demand for services. So, thank you.
I'd just like to echo that. I think it's particularly appropriate here for the clerk of the board, and I'm glad we had that review and we didn't just approve this last time. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. And I do too appreciate the idea there may be other people that are impacted, but we'll wait to see before just jumping and saying. That's great. So, okay. We have a motion and a second, and we'll vote. Okay.
Thank you for your time.
And then we'll go, okay. We're going to go to 31 now. Where does 30 come? Oh, that's a different
Good morning, honorable members of the board. Ms. Robinson, it's good to see you all. Sorry I was late. You all moved so fast. You're so efficient this morning. I was trying to just stay on track and had the speaker going in the background, and all of a sudden I realized, wow, you guys are moving. Yes, you got to sprint on down.
We're into exercise, don't worry.
Well, this is actually, item 30 is really a good news report. This is a step towards more efficient and modernizing some things in the assessor's office.
Hang on, does everybody know we're on 31?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were on item 30. Let me jump to 31.
We'll go back to that, though.
Okay.
You can stay up there.
You really got me confused here. Are we going C, D, no, C, B, A, also kind of back up the alphabet here?
I wouldn't make a good accountant.
Okay, this is my, now I can do it. I'll hide my item 30 stuff so I can do it right. Well, first of all, actually, on the item you just mentioned, just a quick comment if I could. Yeah, your Supervisor Parks is right. This is kind of a time where less is more. You know, there's less appreciation in the marketplace for the assessor, but there's actually more work, and then that affects a lot of other people too. So, anyway, it's good to have that recognition. Item 31 is a continued board item from 2 weeks ago. We asked your board to authorize the allocation of 2 fixed term positions to address increases in the assessor's workload of the assessment appeals staff. In addition, staffing resources, the additional staffing resources for the assessor will help us in addressing taxpayers' appeals in a more timely manner. Obviously, with assessees paying thousands of dollars each year in property taxes, when their position needs attention, or their matters need our service, you know, they need, like they do in this case, it's very important that we respond quickly. And so this is this request will help us be more timely in our response to the needs of taxpayers. At the same time, the assessor staff, by improving in this area, will also reduce some of the impacts on some of the other departments that are associated with property taxes. Really not a whole lot probably extra to add. I'm available for any questions you might have on this issue.
Do we have any questions at all? We looked at this last week, or so we'll have a motion?
I move the item.
Great. And then we'll vote. Since you're there, let's go to 30 now.
Okay, thank you, sir. And thank you for your approval of item 31. Okay, item 30. This, as I was saying, this is part of really a good news item in the process of modernizing your assessor's office. We are here to ask your board to support agenda item 30, which is our property tax backfile scanning services project. It's really phase 1. This is a one-time expense. It has long-term benefits, and it's being paid for out of the assessor's trust fund. This is an important step to fulfilling our vision to modernizing our office. It's a project that we've had in the making for about 3 years, but we needed to stage it in a sequence. We have a number of projects that have been a part of my effort to transition the office over the past, now it's really 9 years. It's actually hard for me to believe it's taken this long. It's a much slower process than I ever dreamed, but we are making good progress. And this this particular phase of the project is linked to the appraisal management system that you approved for me a couple years back, which has been a fantastic item we have in place. It really saved us with this initial reassessment period we had to do last year, where we reduced the assessments of 9,000 properties. This hard file or back file scanning is a conversion of the hard copies to an electronic image, and we also are going to be looking at this step with some of the benefits. I think some of the benefits worth noting, some of the obvious ones is it saves time. I know in talking with GSA, they estimate that typically there's an 8-minute time loss in moving from a desk to a file back to a desk. And those are initial ones. There's also the problem of records that get lost. A lost record can really burn time. You send out an email. Does anybody know where file number so and so is? Is it And so the danger is it misfiled, and those kind of things can happen when you're dealing with 300,000 accounts. The records we're looking at for this process, I'm sure you had a chance to look through some of the description. But we're talking this phase 1 of our project, about 213,000 files. It's well over 4 million pages. We're estimating about 4.1, 4.2 million pages. And anyway, it's a lot of records. It's a lot of fingerprints that can be transitioned to electronic format, which then allows us to have simultaneous access to records by multiple users in multiple departments to minimize, and also minimizes processing delays. And also reduce some of our storage costs. One of the reasons we're starting with the residential files, this particular scanning project is just my residential files, but they take up a lot of square footage. And the growth in our file cabinet, just to give you a sense of tangible, I'm buying 10 file cabinets every year just for the expansion. This will allow me to go the other way. And now some of that because I'm cheap. A lot of that is we first go to the what is this? Oh, surplus. We go to the county surplus, and so if you look at our file cabinets, they're not very attractive because there's probably at least 200 of them are from other departments. So that makes for that kind of a. I'm sorry, I digress. I'll get back on the point here.
In other words, you're saying you're pretty cheap.
Well, I try to be thrifty. I try to use your money wisely. If some of you will remember a few years back, I presented a PowerPoint with a sea of file cabinets. Remember those pictures? We had the sea of file cabinets and a few other things that we were looking at. This is finally coming to that day where we can start removing those cabinets. Provides the flexibility, and one last point too worth mentioning is it's a very important key as an insurance policy. Disaster recovery, all of the issues that the county's working on now to be careful about things. If we were to ever have a disaster where these paper records were destroyed, it would be a huge expense. I mean, tens of millions to try to recreate all of these accounts. And so it's a very important insurance policy as well to have those in electronic format.
Okay.
I think most of the things that you've had a chance to review, maybe just ask questions. One other point, the company that we're working with on this first step in our scanning project is Anacomp. They successfully worked for the assessor in San Diego County, and so we have a lot of confidence in them. And then once this project is completed, I'll be back to your board for a request for further use of our trust funds that are in the assessor's account.
Great.
May I ask or answer any questions?
You have questions?
Yeah, I do have a question. I think this is great. It seems pretty antiquated to have everyone dealing with large maps and papers, and I can understand the sea of file cabinets. I also know that you're just one of many agencies and in the county that have to deal with pretty much the same kind of documents. And I'm just wondering about the universal application of this type of electronic scanning. The planning department has to approve, the grading department has to approve permits, all on houses that then increase in value, and it goes to your department. So is this something that can be shared between agencies and make master files, for example, of a particular property?
Pretty big question. Try to hit the key points. FileNet, first of all, the system we want to use is the county standard. That's the one that IT Services had directed a few years back as what we should be working with. In fact, just a little side note on that, using the county standard, FileNet is, and the equipment that the IT Services has in place, we are probably going to, once I'm done with this project, I'll probably use up all the memory space that's currently available. So IT Services is actually going to be, memory is cheap. That's not a big thing. But it also brings to point that if all county agencies and departments would move towards FileNet as a document management method, this exchange of information would be a better situation. There's also some other things to look at in terms of the next stage of the newer release of FileNet. We're not using the most current version, is what I'm saying. With more bells and whistles, there's a newer version out. And really, the county's at a point in time where it probably ought to start thinking about moving to that. I know Mr. Carroll is already researching that issue. He told me he has someone looking into, a consultant looking into that project, what would be the benefits to the county. But it would be something I'd like to suggest that you be mindful of. And for other agencies, the scanning project that we're doing really is somewhat of a pioneering step that I think I haven't had a chance to talk to a number of my colleagues, but a few, that they may also, if they see success and then the indexing, the retrieval, all of this adds to my efficiency, they may piggyback on this and be able to use the same service. So But in terms of then working with multiple agencies, the flow of information, in other words, RMA, they receive permits. I want to receive those electronically. We have some things in place with Permits Plus to do that. In terms of some of my data, my maps, other issues that RMA needs, or Public Works, or for that matter, the 10 cities in our counties, we definitely want to have a good flow of information. The one thing we'll always be mindful is protecting the confidential portion of the assessor's records. There are a number of records that by statute are confidential, and so that would be, that would be an issue that we'll always be mindful of.
And the outcome would be incredible efficiencies.
Yes, it would be shared efficiencies in a lot of areas. So I think this is a very important step. This transitioning from file cabinet to electronic file allows us to, in effect, create folders where various agencies could have a look at information they need and share information.
And then you raised something about that this isn't the most advanced form of FileNet. And my question is, by going through this whole process, scanning everything, will we then be able to use what we've done if we want to advance to the next
Yes, yes. This will be fully
grade?
compliant with upgrades.
Okay, so you don't have to start over again just because you have a higher version. Okay.
No, I was looking to Mr. Carroll. Mr. Carroll knows more about FileNet than I do by
Okay.
far. In fact,
But this is a great step. Thank you.
Yeah. Do we have a second? No, I think it's great. You're talking about how many file cabinets you're going to see, and I see our new CEO over here calculating number of square footage and all that. You know, everybody's looking for square footage and how much we're going to save and everything else. So that's great to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, there's no question that I echo Supervisor Park's comments that we want to be effective and efficient and find ways that hopefully nobody has to get out of their desk to do that work, and it'll be much better. So great, thank you. We got to vote here. Thank you. Okay, that is good. And I think we are looking for number 33. Don't we know her sister?
Good morning, Chairman Foy, members of the board, Mrs. Robinson, Mrs. Cohen. I'm Shannon Leslie from the CEO's office.
Oh, wow.
Before you today is the first reading of a 3-year agreement with the Ventura Employees Association. The VEA represents approximately 140 employees in the appraisal, engineering, and fleet services classifications. The proposed MOA on average will result in an annual cost of $4.21 to $4.47, depending on the consumer price index during the term of the agreement. A summary of the elements of the agreement are attached to the board letter. The highlights of the agreement are a 3.22 across the board raise effective December 2nd, 07. This is the pay period in which the tentative agreement was reached. Market-based adjustments for various classifications ranging from 0.85 to 4.08 effective July 01, and CPI-based adjustments from in December 08 and in December 09. In addition to the agreement also provides for increases in the flex credit allowance consistent with those other bargaining units within the county. The VEA is voting the agreement today, and we anticipate the ratification prior to your second reading scheduled for the 26th. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Do we have any questions? Second. Then we'll vote.
I'd also like to make a comment. Thank
Yes.
you very much, and thank you to Bean for all the hard work you guys do. I know John is busy dealing with another area of negotiation this morning, or he would be here too. But very good work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Real quick, our next one is 34, correspondence agenda. We have a second. And we'll vote. Okay. That is all our regular agenda items. We got 20 minutes. We can go into closed session for a few minutes. Okay. That's great. We will be back for our 9:30s. All right. We'll come back to session here. We have an announcement on item, what is it, 1 on the
It's
agenda?
item 1 on the addendum agenda.
Okay, sir?
Thank you. Concerning item 1 on the addendum agenda, Los Angeles Times Communications LLC versus California Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training, Sacramento County Superior Court case number 03CS01077, the Board of Supervisors has voted unanimously to authorize intervention or other appropriate means to participate in the case to advance the public interest in protecting from disclosure the names of a few members of county law enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to our 9:30 time certain, and we have a resolution today for the Muscular Dystrophy and the Association and a Firefighter Appreciation Month. This is it's great. I have the opportunity to read a little bit here about this, and this is exciting of what the firefighters do for this cause. It says here the firefighters have been working with Muscular Dystrophy Association to fight against you know what I mean, disease over the last 54 years. I mean, so this is not just something new, it's a long-term commitment. It's been great to see. In the U.S., the firefighters raised more than $28 million through the country in support for Muscular Dystrophy Association and many other causes. And through their daily service to communities and their dedication to the Muscular Dystrophy Association, our local firefighters contribute greatly to the well-being of all citizens. It is an honor and an effort of our local firefighters. Muscular Dystrophy Association is sponsoring the month of February as Firefighter Appreciation Month. And therefore be it resolved that Ventura County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaim the month of February 2008 MDA Firefighters Association Appreciation Month. This is a great opportunity. It's great to see what you do and how much you care about taking care of a group of people that have lost so much. And I just want to say thank you so much. And I know we have a few people here to make comments. You guys want to come up and speak, and I'll come down.
Chairman Foy, members of the board, Mrs. Robinson, Chris Mahan with the Ventura County Professional Firefighters Association. I have with me today Captain Barry Parker. He's the Department Information Officer, and also the members of Engine Company 26, Captain Cruz Garcia, Engineer Bill Diedrich, and Firefighter Steve Chandler. As it says in the proclamation, this is our 54th year with MDA. This is, out of all the charities we do, local and national, this is one that we've been with the longest, and the reasons are very simple. The job isn't done yet. There's been tremendous amount of progress. This is an exciting time to be part of this because there are cures that are getting close, and there are treatments that are currently available out of these efforts. The money that we raise not only goes to research, it does go to direct help for many of the families with MDA children. And it's, again, one of ours. It's a loyalty issue for us as well. This is one of our favorites, obviously, and we're very pleased to be able to participate in this.
Good morning, Captain Barry Parker, Ventura County Fire. It comes from our hearts, and it's something that we enjoy being part of. Number one, because it's something that we get to do with the community, and our community as a whole, from Simi Valley to Ojai, has gotten behind this program and helped us to raise the funds. Of course, as firefighters, we do appreciate that we are being recognized this month with the NDA, and it's very kind of the board to recognize us for that. We appreciate that, but we couldn't do it without the community. It gives us an opportunity to, of course, we all say give back, but really at the local level, and it means something to all of us to participate in it. So we enjoy it. We just want to make sure that that's being said as well. So thank you.
One final note, this year we raised the most in the Tri-County area. There is a little bit of competition between the various fire locals, and so we're very pleased to do that. Thanks.
You know, I will say it's always great to see what you guys do and all of our public safety groups who really care about the communities. This is great, so thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Here's your resolution. Put it up. I don't know which firehouse gets it, but you know. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Say who's next. He knows he's coming. We do need a camera.
Morning, board members. Paul Dursey with the County Executive Office. Here to present pretty much the kickoff to our budget process, and that is to identify some of the key dates we have involved. And today, February 12th, being our ISF rates presentation, I will make a presentation for our office's insurance funds, followed by Matt Carroll presenting ISF rates for the ISD, old ISD.
Good. I don't feel bad. You've been here a long time. So good.
And then finally, Paul Groskol will do the GSA rates and fees. Those rates and fees will be included in the Budget Development Manual, which will be presented to your board 2 weeks from today. And we'll discuss that more when we present that to your board. But that's basically our cookbook for departments to prepare their budget for the upcoming year. It will include all the rates and fees that we have here, plus additional information for those departments to pull together their budgets. March 11th, we plan on coming back to your board to tell you how we are doing for the current year and to make adjustments to the current year budget if necessary. And as necessary, we do know that there are a number of items that we will be bringing back to your board at this time for the current fiscal year to make appropriation and revenue adjustments. For June 3rd is when we are planning to make our preliminary budget presentation and our countywide rates and fees, which will be part of that whole budget process also. And then at this point in time, we are expecting to come back to your board for the final budget hearings on Monday, June 16th. So those are the key dates that we have so far. As far as our office's rates and fees that will be, like I said, included in our budget, in the Budget Development Manual, we have primarily two primary, and that's a workers' comp insurance fund and the liability insurance fund. Workers' comp, both of these funds, by the way, are a bright spot, if there is one, in the next year's county budget. However, they're offset by a lot of dark spots. So, but primarily what we do have is an increase or a decrease in costs from last year, this current year actually, from $25 million down to 21.6. So we have a $3.5 million decrease in costs for workers' comp coming up in this current fiscal year. The way workers' comp rates are determined, we have an actuarial evaluation in September timeframe. We add to that administrative costs, and the actuary tells us what we think that based on historical information, based on basically it's 70% based on departmental experience and 30% based on just number of employees that a department has and the type of employees they have. So it's based on that ratio, and then the actuary does their little magic number, and then they come up with a number that they say that based on expected value, this is what we owe and will owe in the next, have to pay to make this fund whole in the next year. And that, for the next year, we come up with $21.7 million of recoverable costs, down from about 25.1. That's the good news. The bad news is that a lot of that is offset by decreased revenues, increases in other expenses throughout the county, and normal salary increases, et cetera.
So Paul, when you look at normal salary increases plus this, you're still got an increase in cost.
That's correct. That's correct. So this will thankfully offset some of the other increases that we have. And
I'm wondering, is there something that we might attribute this to if 70% is to do with our employees' work situation? Have we done things that have
yeah, there has been a number of items. I think one fundamentally is that there's a much greater emphasis by management on the whole workers' comp process and the costs involved in workers' comp, and our office's involvement directly with those departments in trying to improve things. For example, we work with the Sheriff's Department on the tasers. They've seen a significant decrease in the number of claims, not only the number of claims in workers' comp, but also their overtime that they have to pay for to replace the people who are out on workers' comp. So that in itself, for example, is an example where we see significant decreases in costs, and therefore much better experience. And when it comes to the experience rating by department, the sheriff will see that reduction in their cost ultimately.
Maybe that will reduce attrition too. You know, it just
Hopefully.
goes all the way down the
Hopefully.
line.
And not only that, is that there's a number of, and then it affects retirement contribution rates because they go out and work on disability retirement, service-connected disability, those types of things. So it ripples through the entire county operations, correct?
Let me just, you've done a good job, because I remember last time we did this, I think you were at almost $30 million, right?
That's correct.
And
We
down-
started in fiscal year '05, it was $30 million was our cost, and it's trickled down to about $21.5 million.
Right, that's great. I mean, we know the industry throughout, coming from that industry, is on the way down, and some good reforms have happened, but it takes an employer who's willing to really work hard at trying to find ways to save money, and this will help us make up the deficits in some areas. That's great. Thank you.
General insurance and liability annual premium allocation. This is our other major ISF that we allocate out to departments for costs. Process is primarily the same. We get an actuarial evaluation, we add our administrative costs to it, and then we allocate based primarily on historical experience, and then some square footage cost allocation also based on for different liabilities and insurance for the usage of buildings and the like. Again, good news, $2.5 million, almost $2.7 million decrease in the cost for this particular insurance. If you look at the current fiscal year, our annual recoverable cost is about $12.1 million, down to about $9.4 million for next fiscal year. Again, this, like the workers' comp fund cost, is a good news item in our number of bad news looking forward items. So we will definitely include this in our calculations of what our next year's target budgets are for departments, and we're hoping this will help offset some of the other increased costs and decreased revenue items.
Could you summarize again the major reasons why this is coming down?
This again is an experience issue, and our offices, and that's John Nicole, Chuck Pode, and his group in the risk management area that have done an exceptional job of working hard with the carriers, working hard with the underwriters, and pushing those costs down. And some of it is based on experience. Some of it's frankly luck and not having significant hits in certain areas, but a lot of it is due to good, diligent, not only our management, also management of the different departments in looking into ways to decrease liability and decrease costs for that insurance areas.
Yeah, no, there's no question. Also, the insurance industry itself is what we call a soft market now. So if you're a good risk to them and you're doing the right things, they're willing to give you the premium reduction.
And I'm sure Chuck Pode would be more than happy to meet with you and discuss the specifics. I'm not as involved in the specifics of the operation. Chuck would be more than happy to meet with you and discuss what good things they're doing.
We have a question for
I would
auditor.
just say that it's more of a comment that in general, if the numbers were just the opposite, it might make the newspapers. But because they're showing that we're actually having this good effect, that probably won't make the newspapers.
Right. Ms. Cohen has a question she wanted to ask.
Actually, I have a couple of comments and a couple of questions. Just to make a note that these rates are being submitted to my office for review now. We have not completed our review. If there's any material changes, we would come back with different rates than what may have been published in the Budget Development Manual. And a question to Paul, is there any change in methodology on either of these, and any change in risk exposure
The
for
change in
liabilities?
No, not to my knowledge, but the methodology changed slightly, just the way we were calculating some, we calculate a little bit of a growth factor on the salaries for subsequent year, but other than that, there's really no significant changes in the methodology.
I do.
Supervisor Flynn?
Is there a reason why the auditor hasn't reviewed these yet? I mean,
No, we provide these rates in about a month ago, so their process is to review them between now and the time. As we'll point out next week or 2 weeks from now when we do our budget development manual, this is a working document that ultimately will be approved when we approve the final budget. All these rates and fees will ultimately be finalized and approved.
it just seems to me it's a good idea to try to be on the same page the auditor, controller, and the CEO.
Right,
I would hope that that could be accomplished sometime.
Yeah, generally, we try to work together as far
But I
as.
see the reduction here, and I want to commend the staff, the risk management, and John Nicole, seems to star in every area of county government. I hope you pass my comment on to him.
I will.
I really appreciate his work.
So that's our presentation.
Great. Any more questions? Thank you very much. I appreciate trying to find some money to make up for the others we're not going to have, so thank you. Do we have to teach you about technology here?
This is new. I'm going to impress you, though, with how quickly I pick up on what this new. Morning, board members. Matt Carroll, and now Chief Information Officer in front of you, representing the county's Information Technology Services Department. And Paul's convinced me we're going to have to be working on our brand, a little marketing here. With me here today are Mike Reed, the Assistant CIO of IT Services, and Doris Blossett, our Acting Fiscal Officer for IT Services. As in the past, the packet I handed out to you today, or being handed out to you today, has detailed information on our budget rates, planned capital expenditures, updated benchmarks, and some trend analysis. But I was told last year I went a little long, so I'm going to keep it very brief. We're going to talk to just the 5 first slides here this morning, and then I'll be available to answer any questions. We'll start with our budget rate and highlights. First of all, kind of a good news that Paul's work and John Nicole's work, our salary and benefit costs, and this kind of sets the stage for our department, and likely most, went up 5% this year. So that's what we're having to deal with, how to work with a 5% increase. The same programmer analyst we had last year, the same project manager, cost us 5% more this year. Last year, I think it was a 7 or 8% increase. The year before, it was 9%, and prior to that, it was 14%. So the good news is it continues in the right direction as a result of the work all those folks are doing. But the bad news is that the bulk of our expenses have to do with salary and benefits, probably about 90% of them. So that equates to some increases in our rates on a like-for-like service. And I just mentioned the 3 most common rates here that equate to probably 90% of our billings to departments and therefore revenues. Our shared large-scale computing platforms, things such as the CGIS, the county payroll system, corporate file server, those are increasing depending on the platform, 1 to 5%. The CGIS 1%, payroll about 5%, or IBM mainframe about 4 or 5%. So that's a result of that salary and benefit cost increases. Our network access rates, which are a combination of telephones and data connection ports, are going up an average of 1.5%. Each employee in the county typically has 1. Our phone rates are going up 3%. Our data communication connection fee is going up 0, so that equates to about a 1.5% for our telecom billings. Our most common labor rates are about 4%, 0 to 5%. Some aren't going up at all. I think the high end is 5%. I think most of them are about 4%. So that, in a nutshell, is the highlights of our budget and rate and the fees going out. We did do a brief update to our benchmarks, which I'll touch upon. We didn't do a full benchmark update this year, but we are still displaying as the lowest cost for service provider among our peers. Our total budget this year, as you can see in the previous fiscal year, 07-08, it was about $35 million in revenues and expenses. This year, it's up about 12%. And there's a reason that's a lot higher than the 5%. We are working with the Fire Protection District and the County Executive Office to transition support for all fire district IT systems from their internal staff and a series of consultants to IT services. That's going to increase our revenue and expenses by about $2.6 million. So the bulk of that increase, more than half of it next year, is taking on IT support for the Fire Protection District. And we're really looking forward to that new partnership with them, or increased partnership. We've always worked closely with them. But next year, they're going to have us work with them to take over all IT support outside of radio for the time being. So that's the bulk of that increase there, and a point I did want to, depending upon whether the CEO office can do that administratively, because it's going to require some new positions in IT services, we'll be back to your board. And if they can do that administratively based on that issue that's out there, we'll do that administratively, and we're working closely with the County Executive Office. Just to touch upon the benchmarks, again, we do benchmarking every...
Could you go back one,
yes.
please? Yeah.
I don't know. Can I? Okay.
Well, you are quick.
So the difference between your operating revenue and your operating expense is our net county cost?
Well, it's a net cost. It's a net cost to the ISF. It isn't absorbed by the county. That's part of our retained earnings. This year, we have about $3.2 million in retained earnings in one ISF and about $6 million in the other. We've been bringing those down gradually. I will say these rates and budgets are based upon, we produce our budget before we produce our latest forecast. Now, we are having some revenue shortfall this year in IT services, and we're going to be looking to cut expenses to make up for that. Departments are spending less than us, where there were several big projects that were planned to go forward that aren't going forward this year with a couple of our customers. So we need to make up for that. So we may draw down that retained earnings a bit more than planned this year, but that's typically what that's for. And there's also, Steve, a material amount of unplanned revenue that comes in all year. Departments find some money to spend. There's a project that wasn't on the horizon, a grant they want to move forward. So we always have revenues a little bit less than expenses because we'll get unplanned revenues.
And it doesn't drive your expenses up?
Not on a one-for-one basis, typically.
So this policy, for example, this year, will we end up not drawing down on those, essentially your IT reserves?
Right now, I'm anticipating we will draw down on those. Yes. To the extent we do not know yet, we just did our first forecast for the year. We have to sharpen our pencils. But
do we want that to be our policy, both from the CEO's office and IT?
We don't do that every year. Last year, we were much closer to being balanced, and depending upon the year, we've actually made money. And on the majority of years, we make money. So let's say it's a measured risk that we won't. And it's not a conscious decision we're going to draw down on reserves every year. But we always have, you'll see, we always have, in most cases, expenses a bit higher than revenue because we tend to have more revenue than planned going into the year. So this year's an anomaly. We are seeing some material differences in revenue, and we may need to come back and make some adjustments, but we're just going to try to sharpen our pencils.
From a board perspective, I'm not sure I'm interested in anybody setting themselves up to be drawing down their reserves as we're going into this tough time. That's why I'm raising the issue. So if you feel like, I mean, it's no guarantee that this won't, but if you feel like our normal pattern would be that wouldn't happen, I'm just curious whether, I guess the thought I have in my mind is as things get tighter, will these departments be finding these other things that they need to contract with you for to generate additional revenue? But we can watch it and see where we are.
That would be our hope.
Okay.
We're a little surprised at our revenue drawdown this year, and like I say, we have some work to do between now and the end of the year. Okay, benchmarking, just very quickly here. We benchmark every other year. We typically come in significantly lower than all the peer counties in Southern California. That's all 5, with the exception of Imperial County and 3 Northern California counties. So we don't wear out our welcome because we publish those benchmarks, and they tend to irritate some of my colleagues up there. But anyway, what we did this year in our benchmarks is, since it's an off year, we just took what our peer county rates were for our most common charges, and that's the second column where you see average peer county rate. The first 4 are labor rates. The second 2 are our data and our phone rates. And then we took our rates for this year in the third column and our rates for next year in the fourth column. And you can see we're still significantly under our peer rates, which is that second column. So just to give you some feel that we, and those peer counties are obviously going to be raising their rates this year. We didn't just ask them to tell us what that was. We'll ask them next year. So even if they didn't raise their rates at all next year, we're still about 10% below them. So we're looking good there as far as keeping our rates competitive. The last column is San Diego, who's completely outsourced, and that's our example of what it would take if we hired an outsourcer to do this, and that's their rates on the far right from last year as well. So in a nutshell,
could I ask a question
Yes.
regarding salary and rates? The second slide that you did where you mentioned all the budget rate, the highlights, each one of them is obviously an increase as inflation and salary increases and all that, but is it possible that they could be combined, in a particular service that's provided and you end up with like a 10% increase on that service? I guess when we see the actual breakdown, we'll have a better idea.
Yeah, we work very closely with the auditor's office. Like Paul said, we gave them our rates about 5 weeks ago, and they're going through and they've asked them, as they do every year, some very pointed questions. So the service has to accurately reflect the cost of providing that service. Like, we can't move money between services, and I don't think that's what you're alluding to, but they are what they are, and it's a very accurate assessment of what the costs are. And I like to show these benchmarks to show you we're being frugal with the money, and so I'm not sure if that answers your question or not.
Okay, so it's possible that we could see, and we'll look at the rates when they come, but it's possible the combination of these type of highlights could end up with some good bumps in some of the services, not all, but just some of the services, because they just happen to impact with both salaries and labor, network access, all the different things compiled on top of each other, and you can end up with a good jump in some services.
I think I know where you're going with that. A typical department uses all these services from us, the sheriff, the justice agencies, and they will see a net increase from us in the 4 to 5% range. So they're not cumulative, but all together, when their labor will go up 4 to 5%, their shared platforms will go up. So I would say almost across the board, our allocations to agencies and departments are up about 4 to 5% next year. If it's a department that just uses telecom, they're only up 1.5%, and there are a few of those.
So for a department that uses all these, and a lot of the departments do, combined, they will have to note a 10% increase coming.
No, 4 to 5%, because it's.
Okay.
No.
It's not cumulative.
Net.
It's not
net.
cumulative.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
I just want to take this opportunity because not very often do we get to so clearly put this up there, but everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people sort of poo-pog government can't do things efficiently and all of that. When you look at what San Diego really prides themselves on outsourcing and all of that, and you look what San Diego is doing down there, and I would offer to you that over and over again that can be the case. And people talk about us outsourcing all of our VCMC services, all of our hospital services, and going that rate. And I would offer if you did that, you'd find a similar kind of thing. But it is certainly a compliment to our IT department that as competitive as it is out there in terms of finding people and all that stuff, for you to be able to keep those rates down. And that's a substantial savings over what would be happening if we did what some other counties did. So I just hope that we'll keep that in mind when everybody jumps on the traditional bandwagon of government is inefficient and can't get the job done properly. So nice job. Thank you. Very good.
Okay. Last. Boy.
That won't be the story either.
I should have trialed this one.
Nobody's trying to point to you about anything. You're right.
Okay. Last slide, and then I'll turn over to GSA. We did have one significant new rate I want to discuss with you very briefly here, and I apologize, this slide has the shadows on it. This is a rate for our meta directory infrastructure. It's a new infrastructure that was recently adopted by the ITC. The objective of the meta directory, and those of you on the IT committee have heard about this, and I apologize in advance, this is a bit of an esoteric subject, but the meta directory is an organization-wide infrastructure that presents an electronic schematic of what our organization is and who's in it, where they report, and it's leverageable by a variety of applications and systems. The benefits of a meta directory, and private sector is moved in this direction very strongly. They use it with a different approach than a meta directory. But as it reduces, and if you can look on your slide, it reduces the number of unique login accounts and passwords that staff has to remember, and the number of systems staff uses is only increasing. It's not decreasing. So you're getting more stickies with more login accounts and passwords they have to keep track of, which is not good. It will improve countywide information system security when it's tied into our payroll system, and that's phase 2 of meta directory. Right now, meta directory will eventually receive its information on employees from the payroll system. And what's the one system we make sure we remove employees from? It's payroll, so they don't keep getting paid, which will mean they'll be removed from the meta directory. And when we tie the CGIS into the meta directory or any other applications and email, they'll automatically be removed from those systems. That's not the case today, and we have a lot of redundant and stale user IDs that aren't getting removed on a timely basis. And finally, as I said, it'll serve as an electronic organizational schematic as we go into business process reengineering, which your board wants to look at, and business process automation. These processes need to have a picture of what the organization looks like, and the meta directory is that electronic picture. So we've been piloting that for 2 years. We finished that pilot in 2007. It was adopted by the IT as a standard non-discretionary infrastructure item in October, or they recommended it to the CEO's office as their role. The new rate next year for that is $3.80 per month per employee. That infrastructure isn't inexpensive. It's about total implementation costs in the neighborhood of $350,000, and ongoing support is in the neighborhood of $300,000 a year. That's how that rate comes up with it. Now, that rate is based on a one-time investment by the general fund to fund the one-time implementation costs, which I said are about $350,000. That's a strategy that was proposed to the CEO's office. They're looking at it to see if we can do some fund balance transfer at the end of this year, or whether they'll do it next year as part of the budget. So it's kind of a strategic decision that's being made, and trying to, Paul's looking at where the budget stands this year. But that's the recommendation that's been made. To adopt that, it's got a lot of benefits, and that rate reflects the strategy that there will be some one-time contributions to the one-time implementation costs. So that's the only, we have a couple other minor new rates. This is the major one, and I wanted to share that with your board. And with that, I'm done. And that's there's more detail in the various slides that are included on our rate trends and our capital expenditures for next year, sample rates, and then all our rates are included on the attachment on the final 2 pages of the attachment.
The meta directory, the main benefit out of that is to increase security?
That is what most organizations use it for, yes. And it dramatically does that. That's a ways down the road until we tie it into payroll, but yes.
Now, is that 380 now because the implementation cost is going to go down next year then? Or is
No, that does not include implementation costs.
that's just that.
That is basically all the annual licensing for that and 2 FTEs to support that capability. And we hope to get down to 1.5 FTEs. So yes, but labor will probably catch up labor costs. But yes, the plan is after it's a extended implementation, because we're really doing this pretty frugal. If you went into a corporation our size, they'd be throwing a dozen people at it. We're putting 2 or 3 people to implement this. So it'll take probably 18 to 24 months, and at the end of that, we'll drop down on the FTE level.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. You have another question?
Yeah, not a question, just a comment. I mean, it's oftentimes been said you can't really tell whether you're doing better unless you have data that really tells you that you're doing better. And I really appreciate the IT department coming forward. This is good data, and the data that you're not presenting I see in here similar to data that we've gotten in the past, and it's going to be good for us to be able to review this, because it does give us that verification as to where we're doing well, or are there any places that we need to improve in and stuff. So I appreciate the data. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, board members, Mrs. Robinson, Paul Grossgold here from General Services, and we're going to talk about our ISF rates. I need these to check. Okay. Okay, that's us. Just a roll-up of some of our rates from facility square footage, transportation, and procurement. And as I go through these slides, this is a good one to start with, because when you think about facilities and transportation, those are the heavy users of some items that are going up in price, as I'm sure you're all aware. Utilities, auto parts, consumables, cleaning supplies, just about everything we use. Those are the areas where we're seeing those increases. So looking at square footage rate comparisons last year to this year, you can see across the board in a sampling of our facilities that we are seeing an increase in those rates. At my final slide in the presentation will show our benchmarks with some of the leases in the area that show that we're still well below the going square footage rates in the area. But you can see that our rates are going up pretty much across the board. Switching from rates to revenues, you can see that utilities in our facilities is going up roughly 6.5%. And actually, I have a couple of slides that I'll show you in a couple of minutes that will show that this could be a lot worse if our experts that are sitting in the back weren't working hard on those energy projects that I've talked about here before. Housekeeping, some of those increases are the result of labor, where we're just about up to full staffing in some of the areas where we had vacancies before, so that is an impact as well.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
I know it's because you're an enterprise fund, but run it through our heads, why is that called revenue? Square footage revenues.
Well, in this case, this is the revenue that we receive from our customers. So I switched on you from rates to revenues, and I just wanted to show you with it coming
And
in.
you charge your customers a specific charge for utilities, a specific charge for maintenance?
Well, it's square. No, it comes out in the square footage, but this shows a breakdown of the monies that come in and where they're going.
Okay.
So I also wanted to point out that with our 30-year-old campus, some of those trees outside that started out as saplings some years ago are becoming major mature trees, and we're finding that managing those trees and ensuring we don't have risks to people and branches falling, et cetera, and keeping them healthy. So we've broken out tree management as a separate item to make sure we're doing that correctly.
And this is in $1,000?
Yes.
It's a lot of tree trimming.
Look at the utility costs.
Now here's these next two slides will show you kind of what I was talking about, building electricity costs in some of our facilities the last 3 years. Now 07, 08 is still projected, but you can see the increases in some of our bigger facilities. And when you get to this next slide, we can see that our electricity consumption is actually pretty flat or coming down. And these are actuals starting 04, 05, 05, 06, and 06, 07. So I think this is a good news story in what our folks in the back have been able to accomplish, although the costs, the utility costs are still increasing our rates, but the picture would have been much less, I think, much worse, I think, had we not been doing those sorts of things.
Question on the utility costs, electricity costs. Is there a percentage of what they've gone up in this year period of time?
I think I have a slide on that.
Okay.
Oh, no, I don't. Let's see.
If you could just get that to me.
Sure.
I know we're working and have done a very good job in looking at conservation and retrofitting and all of that. But, you know, we always need to look then, too, to work with our utility partners and how
And
those
some
rates
of our
go
rates
up.
are different. For example, we pay a different electric rate out at East County Courthouse, for example, than we do here. So some of those, we'll get you a roll-up of those.
Huh, okay.
And these are facilities benchmarks, which show like facilities in the different areas. And again, we're down, and in these we've backed out security, so we're actually looking apples to apples on these. So we're still doing well below the going market rate as a roll-up. Subject to your questions, that's where we stand with our rates right now.
Do we have any additional questions for Mr. Groscombe? No?
Just the concept that we need to look at because of AB 32, the greenhouse gases, and I guess they're pretty much related to the energy consumption, and seeing that, you know, we have a long way to go to get to 1990 levels.
True, and we can mitigate some of the things. For example, this year we're going to see a fairly sizable increase in the cost of paper. I think it's 10% or more, and that's an area that's, you know, we have some control over the amount of paper we use, and so we have, it's not all the bad news story of this is going to happen to us. We do have the ability to impact some of these things.
We're going to electronic instead of paper.
The handout that you gave us actually has one more slide. Do you have one more slide?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, it is transportation. I thought that was earlier, but this is transportation revenue, and this looks that number looks pretty bad. But if you back out the prior year losses, that's actually down below 3%. One of the challenges we have is estimating year to year As I mentioned earlier, in the area of transportation, we have seen significant cost increases. For example, in tires, they're petroleum products, and the costs have been quite high. The other area is outsourcing. We do outsource some special functions that because of economies of scale, we don't do that ourselves, like transmissions or engines. We don't build up our own engines. Still, our target of no greater than 15% outsourcing, we're still well below that at 12%. So that's where we are. And of course, we all know about fuel. And fuel is charged as a direct charge to customers.
Will the prior year loss recovery, will that continue into next year also? Or
We don't believe so. We think our numbers are pretty good, good estimates this year.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. So, we need a motion to file and receive. We have a motion to file and receive.
Second. I have one suggestion for both the GSA and IT. It looks nice on paper, but the shadows don't work on the screen. The color just doesn't show up.
Okay, vote. Oh, we did. I think Supervisor Bennett second. He didn't push the button, all right? I'm sorry.
I did the more important thing.
That's right. Okay. We'll go to our 10 o'clock, number 21. Talk about paper.
Chairman Foy and members of the board. My name is Charles Anthony. I'm a planner with Ventura County Planning. Thank you for granting the Planning Division's request to conduct a public hearing of Nathan Bourne's General Plan Amendment screening request. We have conducted our analysis of the applicant's request, and we will provide a recommendation to the board. We'll ask that the members of the board vote on whether the screening item should be approved for further processing. Mr. Nathan Bournes has filed a GPA screening request involving two legal non-conforming lots of 9 and 5 acres. The two lots are located at Moorvale Drive in the Carlisle Canyon area in the near Lake Sherwood in the city of Thousand Oaks. And it's obviously right up in this area. It's these two with the check marks as the boundary lines right here. The subject parcels are located within the Lake Sherwood Hidden Valley area of interest. The land use designation is 20 acres minimum. The existing area plan policies allow for connections to the water and sewer systems of the Lake Sherwood community for its residents and for the existing and replacement single-family dwellings outside of the Lake Sherwood community boundaries. Mr. Bourne's proposed screening request would amend the policies to allow water and sewer connections for new single-family dwellings on existing legal lots outside of and contiguous to the Lake Sherwood community. If approved, Mr. Bourne intends to develop on each of these parcels a single-family dwelling unit which is consistent with the existing area plan land use designation and zoning. There are 10 contiguous vacant legal lots that could also benefit from this policy text change. Here's the large-scale map, and then if we advance to the next. All these units in yellow, all these lots in yellow, I should say, would be those that could benefit from this proposed amendment. We did discover, since we submitted the board letter to all of you, that there is one additional vacant lot, which is right in this area here. And I can give you the APN number if you wish, which could also benefit from this policy. It actually is a vacant lot, and we had misunderstood it as being something that had a unit on it or had a lot on it or a home on it, but in fact does not. So we are at a total of 10 plus Mr. Boren's additional 2, which would be a total of 12. The applicant's request is consistent with general plan and area plan goals and policies related to existing water supply and sewer capacity. The water and sewer districts can service the needs of Mr. Boren's project. Also, the Cayugas Water District indicates that it has sufficient capacity to meet future water supply needs from additional contiguous property owners, including all 12. However, it is not clear if this is an adequate sewer capacity to meet the future needs of contiguous property owners who may be eligible to connect to the sewer system should Mr. Boren's request be granted by the board. On the issue of growth inducement, prior to 1997, area plan policies prevented connections to water and sewer systems outside the Lake Sherwood community boundary. In 1997, the board approved a policy text amendment allowing for existing and replacement homes outside the Lake Sherwood community to connect to the water and sewer systems. The staff report for 1997 general plan amendment concluded that there was no growth inducement as no additional dwelling units would be built beyond what was allowed by the area plan. Mr. Boren's current screening does not request a change in land use designation or lot size. The subject site and surrounding properties in the Carlisle Canyon area will remain open space 20-acre minimum, which already allows for single-family dwelling units to be built on pre-existing non-conforming parcels. LAFCO has commented that it is not opposed to Mr. Boren's request. LAFCO indicates that 3 districts, Cayugas Municipal Water, Triumphal Sanitation, and Lake Sherwood Community Service District, may have to annex the entirety of the area affected by Mr. Boren's proposed policy text change. In other words, the 3 districts involved may have to amend their spheres of influence to include all 12 parcels that are affected by this GPA screening. In the case of the Lake Sherwood Community Service District, a sphere of influence update may be required. Also, LAFCO states the project and cumulative impacts to all service providers should be conducted during SEQO review. Cayugas Municipal Water District also provided a comment letter. Cayugas' concern is that the affected contiguous property owners may believe that Mr. Boren's proposed policy text amendment may entitle these owners to water from the Lake Sherwood community. Cayugas suggests revising the applicant's proposed text change to the water supply policy by adding that water service be contingent on annexation to the Lake Sherwood Community Service District and to the Cayugas Municipal Water District. The comments by LAFCO and Cayugas do not necessarily constitute fatal flaws in the proposed amendment request. The issue of a thorough review can be addressed during the post-screening environmental review phase if your board approves of the request for further processing. Also, Cayugas' request for additional text language does not change the nature of the applicant's request. The Plan Division, therefore, recommends approval of the general plan amendment screening request for further processing subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall file an application to the general plan amendment, and 2, as part of the general plan amendment application process, the project and cumulative impacts to public services and growth inducement shall be fully analyzed to address the issues raised by LAFCO and the Cayugas Municipal Water District. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a speakers. Anyone want to make comments before I hear the speaker first? Okay. Okay. Mr. Braidman?
Good morning to the board. My name is Bob Braitman. It's a pleasure to be here today. The last time I was here speaking about this particular general plan issue was when the last time you amended it. My client at that time was David Murdoch, who got the approval of the board to provide water and sewer services for his property in Hidden Valley. I'm here today, however, representing the applicant for this general plan amendment screening. His name is Nathan Boren. He's a longtime owner, by the way. Mr. Boren has owned those 2 parcels for more than 20 years. He doesn't wish to change the parcel size. He simply wishes to use high-quality water and connection to the sewer system rather than putting more septic tanks into that area. We support your staff recommendation. We urge your approval of that recommendation as it's submitted to you. There's no change in zoning, no increase in number of parcels, as has been explained by Mr. Anthony. Mr. Boren is here and available if you have any questions for him. I'm going to also simply note that we do have a will-serve letter from Triumphal Sanitation District to serve sewers to these two homes, two potential houses. I'd like to reserve any remaining time I have to respond to any statements or questions from interested parties. With that, we urge your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
I have a couple of questions. I've been running back and forth with staff on some of these. Mr. Braitman discussed what he considers contiguous as being on, I guess, what would be the north side of Carlisle Road and not across the street. Is that staff's interpretation?
Actually, the legal interpretation under the Subdivision Map Act is, in terms of contiguous, means immediately adjacent or separated only by a public right-of-way. So if the community boundary is on the north side of a portion of Carlisle Road and the parcel is on the south side of Carlisle Road, that is contiguous.
Okay, so it's not as indicated. It could be on either side of the road then?
Yes, depending on the circumstance.
And I'm not completely clear because just this morning we were told it's now another lot in addition. I'm not quite sure because it was kind of a dark map which lot that is. Do you know what the acreage of the other lot that's being added is, Mr. Anthony?
I wonder if we could if we could bring the map back up, but I do not have the acreage. I have the APN number, I have that parcel, and I can show it if we can bring the map back up.
Okay, and we have it in our packet. So
it would be similar in size. It would be approximately based. I'm just eyeballing it right now, but it looks like in the area of 4 to 5 acres.
Okay.
I'm comparing it to another lot next to it where I do have the actual acreage.
Okay. And the wording on the condition, we're talking about only legal lots at this time, right?
Yes.
But we're not really saying as of this date, and I think that would be an important addition to it because more lots could be formed later and then fall into this, but I don't think that's the intent. Can we incorporate that?
Okay.
I know that I have been approached by residents on the other side of Carlisle, the public portion, the east side Carlisle Road. Some of them are having troubles with their wells, and they are existing houses. And that is just so I know that there's definitely a desire on East Carlisle Road for water. Here was the first time that we'll be bringing any water to Carlisle Road on the west portion, but it's the only time that you'll have water brought in. That I would like to be able to see, instead of just looking at undeveloped lots that can have water, why we wouldn't be looking at existing lots that need water, that have houses on them, as opposed to ones that are undeveloped. To me, the priority should go to people who already have a home there as opposed to new development. I don't know if we're at a point with the water availability that we need to prioritize. For example, I've also been told that residents out in Hidden Valley are very interested in getting potable water too. They're trucking in water. So this is all that same area plan, Hidden Valley, Lake Sherwood. You have residents with existing homes clamoring for water, and yet what we're proposing here is to allow for water availability for lots that don't have homes. So I'm just wondering if we need to look at this in a more cumulative aspect.
We were discussing this. I think Bruce would be better to answer that.
We were conferring with County Council prior to today's hearing, and the cumulative analysis would have to address all existing lots that are contiguous to the Lake Sherwood community boundary, be they in Hidden Valley or not, whether or not they have an existing dwelling or whether or not they're currently vacant. So the cumulative will have to address all of that. But the area plan policies right now don't allow extension beyond contiguous parcels. So if your board were to want us to study the remainder of Hidden Valley or the remainder of the parcels along Carlisle Road, your board could direct us to do that, but in our discussions with county council, that's not something that we can ask Mr. Bourne to pay for.
No, I wouldn't think Mr. Bourne should pay for it either, but what we have before us is a change to the general plan policy right now that would allow for, if it's approved further down the line, water to be brought into undeveloped lots. And I'm just, to me, it's a piecemeal way of approaching this, that we need to look at what is the water availability issue. Perhaps it wouldn't make any difference if you brought into those 12 lots water in terms of denying it to everyone else because there won't be enough. So to me, I just want to make sure that we have sufficient water before we make a policy saying bring it in for undeveloped lots. Sorry for those who already have a house, you can't have water even if your well's drying up. So I just would like to have that analysis. It doesn't seem like it'd be that costly. I mean, it's basically we know how many units are out there, how much water those units would need for residential use, and just see if Callegas is at that threshold where they can't do it. Then I think we do need to prioritize. So I don't know if we have to wait for an applicant to come in to have that study done, but I sure would like to be able to get that information.
Were you suggesting that only we would look at this in the context of analysis, or were you suggesting that the general plan amendment the general plan should be amended to include these other areas?
I want to know before I would include any other areas as if there's water availability for the 11 units that are being that positively impacted by this general plan amendment.
I believe that it would be a relatively straightforward and analysis just to attain the information how many additional lots may benefit, but realizing it's not part of the project description. So that information can be supplied at the time the amendment is provided, but it actually can't be used in the findings for the environmental document because that's not the request that would be before your board, but we can provide that information.
Okay, that would be helpful, just to make sure that we're not at some kind of threshold. Callegas, doesn't have enough water, and so I would like to have that information. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Is there any other questions, comments? Okay, then we have this before us, and we have a motion for this.
I'll be happy to go ahead and move forward on this screening process. I know that when we get the environmental document, we'll look at things like car trips. I know that's a concern for East Carlisle. 10 units would be, 100 car trips on this narrow, skinny road. So all those things will be looked at in the analysis, as well as I appreciate getting the information back on the water capacity out there. And would go ahead and approve this with the one small change of saying legal lots as of this date. And the staff's in accordance with that change. So that would be my motion.
Do we have a second? And we'll go ahead and vote. And that's approved. Okay. Thank you. Boy, we are on time. Okay. You know how to just get it going right there. I like that. All right, we'll move to number 22, our 10:30 time certain.
Good morning, Chairman Foy, Marty Robinson, members of the board. My name is Christy Madden with the County Executive Office. In October of this year, your board directed the CEO's office to explore potential funding options to consider contributing $150,000 to the People's Self-Help El Patio project in downtown Ventura. The funding was stipulated on the necessity that the funds be available in time for People's Self-Help's escrow closing in April, and also we were to try and find funding that would not restrict the people who could live at the project by their location of residency. The board's initial intent was to provide 3 units of housing for emancipated foster youth, people emancipating from our foster care system. However, subsequent discussions with the HSA staff indicate that these units that are essentially the form of single-room occupancy and shared kitchen facilities would not be a good fit for this specific population. However, given the board's commitment to the recently endorsed 10-year strategy to end homelessness, staff recognized the project's importance in filling an important housing need as identified in the 10-year strategy. At $150,000, 3 units equates to about $50,000 a unit. Persons coming from publicly funded systems of care from the county, whether it be from the healthcare system, persons coming out of a hospital, from jails, from the mental health system, could be referred to this project for potential placement at People's Self-Help Project in downtown Ventura. People's Self-Help would serve as the property manager, would dictate the amount of rent that would be charged to the units, and would have all responsibility for dictating who got in and who didn't get in. The intent is to ensure that at least 3 units at any given time would be available to people coming from publicly funded systems of care, essentially people that we, our social service agencies, and others take care of as county residents, but it wouldn't matter where they were coming from geographically within the county. Many members of our homeless population actually are working. Not everybody who is homeless is unemployed. So we do have a significant portion of our population who are working, living out of their cars, and couch surfing, as they commonly refer to. A lot of these people could actually work more, have more stable employment if they actually had a place to live and to return to each day. To protect the county's investment, we are proposing, if the board approves this allocation of funding, to place a lien on the property that would dictate that if the property were ever sold, the $150,000 investment would come back to the county. We're all very cognizant of the dire fiscal conditions at the state, and we fully anticipate that those troubles are going to trickle down to the county of Ventura. In essence, providing stable housing for the 44 residents at the El Patio project would actually serve to reduce the impacts to our social services agencies by providing stable housing to these residents. Of the 3 potential funding sources that staff evaluated, only one, which is basically taking funds from the county's general fund contingency, satisfies the need of not having restrictions on jurisdiction of residents and being available in a timely manner for People's Self-Help's closing. We do have representatives from People's Self-Help Housing who are here, who can speak to the financing of this project and to operational issues if you have any questions. Completes my presentation.
Go ahead. Question for staff that I want to get these questions out before we have the applicants come up also to speak. But what I just want to make sure that is explained to us is what kind of assurances will we have that the county's recommended people will be the people to be accepted, that the county's applicants won't be paying higher rent than the other applicants. That's the operational issue that still is I still just want to make sure we get assurances on. So I don't know if you have anything with that, or if you
I'd
want to let
probably defer that
Okay,
specific
great.
question to Jill Martinez of People's Self-Help. Other questions of the board?
We will go to our speakers. Ms. Martinez?
Thank you very much. Jill Martinez, representing People's Self-Help Housing. I ask your apologies. I've been in bed for 10 days, so I'm going to try to limit my speaking and just answer questions. You're familiar with the project. We're very excited about it. I'd like to share with you that the rent structures are determined through HUD, so they're restricted rents depending on whether a person's income is 30% of area median income, 50%, or 80%. The rents in this particular development will be anywhere from $450 up to $700. And we do have a number of Section 8 vouchers for the development, and no one will be paying any more than 1/3 of their income. As far as monitoring, People's Self-Help Housing works in 19 different jurisdictions, and so many times we just regularly give reports back to those jurisdictions so that they can make sure they can count the number of units. We do have partnerships, and we're developing an MOU with County Mental Health and we have units with them, so you will be getting ongoing reports from several different departments in the county. So I'm here to answer questions, if you'll forgive me. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda Bronswigger?
Good morning, board members. My name is Linda Braunschweiger. I reside in Camarillo, and I'm here today representing Affinity Bank. As many as you know, Affinity Bank is a billion-dollar bank headquartered in downtown Ventura, about 2 blocks from the El Patio Hotel. Mike McGuire, our president and CEO, was not able to be here today, but he has spoken in favor of this project. We have about 135 employees in the downtown area, ranging from our executives to our part-time tellers. And the need for workforce housing is high on our list, particularly for our employees in the downtown area. So we just wanted to make sure that you're aware that Affinity Bank supports this project and the need for more workforce housing for the very low income. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol Schulklin?
Good morning, Chairman Foy and members of the board. I'm Carol Shulkin with the Human Services Agency and the Homeless Services Program. I speak very much in support of this project. It would be a dream of ours to have this sort of project throughout the county, serving people throughout the county. My program serves homeless people in all the jurisdictions of the county and the unincorporated area. And one of our biggest challenges is to find affordable, appropriate housing for people who are working to move themselves out of homelessness. As you can imagine, the housing stability and the employment stability very much go together. In a recent survey that the Homeless and Housing Coalition did recently, we found that over 54% of the people who are homeless have at least a part-time job. And many of those people that my staff work with are unfortunately living either in emergency shelters or their cars in order to continue to go to work. So to have units like this that are affordable and close to jobs and close to public transportation would be very valuable to help people's move towards independence and self-sufficiency. So I urge your support. Thank you.
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
The individuals that this is ideal for, according to the report, are for people directly coming from the street, graduating from the RAIN program, or transitioning from temporary housing programs. I'm wondering, what about people facing eviction? You know, that, I mean, they are about to be evicted. That would be this. They also could be considered. We're not just sticking to those 3.
I would leave that to Jill to answer.
And that gets kind of back to the question, if the county has 3 slots, is that something the county can decide on who the individuals should be? And also looking at the geographic placement, you know, Thousand Oaks is looking at a mobile home park that's about to, where the residents are about to be evicted. And to me, I want to make sure that this isn't just for residents, for example, in the non-residents, people who don't have homes in the West County, but it would be from anywhere in the county, and also incorporate people that are, you know, about to be evicted, so they don't have to go and become homeless for a while.
I'll let Jill speak to the first question, but as I understand it, it is open to people from throughout the county.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, it is open to people throughout the county, not just limited. And evictions, depending on what the reason is. Sometimes when people are evicted because they're behind in their rent, you do need to have good credit, that kind of thing. So, but yes, definitely, we are working with a 10-year strategy to prevent homelessness, and an aspect of that is prevention. And so we're working to build funds to help people to have first and last month's rent. We're also working on a program that's called Circles, so that we can help with individuals that a group of people get around them, and we're willing to take third-party income to help people that don't currently have money for the next 3 to 6 months. So there are a lot of different options for people moving into this into the El Patio.
But the selection of the, for those 3 units would be the county selection, or is that?
I don't think that's necessarily something that you would want to be a part of, but they will come from the county, that you would go through a process of approving our applications and doing intake. I'm not sure what process that you would use. What we will do is get referrals from county mental health and from RAIN and so on, and those will be the applicants for those units.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Jill, the applicant pool would be countywide.
Yes.
The mechanism for getting you the pool to consider for these 3 would be from our mental health, from our Carol Shulkin from the homeless coordinator, potentially from RAIN through Carol.
Exactly.
That's correct?
Exactly. So there's a good probability that it would be definitely a person from the county.
Thank you. Jim Hensley?
Good morning, distinguished members of the board, staff, ladies and gentlemen of the audience. I am Jim Hensley. I'm with the League of United Latin American Citizens. We call ourselves LULAC. We've been around since 1929. I'm the Deputy District Director. I come here for a few different reasons. I've known Reverend Jill Martinez for a few years now. She is a wonderful person. Super. Everything about her quality and her bearing is just something I support and I believe in. Okay? Number 2, I'm a retired military person. I know a lot of these people on these streets down here are retired military people. Number 3, I have a daughter, 45 years old. She has a tracheotomy, serious mental health programs. I have her housed in the Ventura Inn right now. Something like this can help out a lot of people. Now, I believe if this can be accomplished, and if Jill can prove what this can be done, it's just a stepping point. There are so many people in this county that are homeless, so many down on their luck, so many need a boost, that she can take this as a springboard and just build more of these across the county, hopefully. It seems to be self-sustaining from what I can see. The county is going to be paid back for it, from what I understand. So I really, really urge you, vote for approval. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, may I expand on an answer? I wanted to mention about county representatives. What I didn't make clear, there will be 42 units available, and certainly half of those, I'm going to be so bold to say, will probably come from the county, at least half. So at any given time, a significant number of the people there will be coming from the referrals from the county.
Debbie Schreiber?
Good morning. My name is Deborah Schreiber. I'm the coordinator of a neighborhood group, the Calorama Coalition, in downtown, the side of downtown, and we're very close to El Patio. A need we've very much identified is more housing, low cost, safe, very affordable housing. We adjoin Plaza Park. People are sleeping in their cars. People are, walking, sleeping on the ground and sometimes in our yards, and housing is just a major need that we've identified in our community. I'm familiar with some of the things self-help housing has done in other areas. Everything I see and hear is good. They run their facilities very, very well, and there is a video, and Jill hasn't shown it here, but it's some of the people speaking for themselves and saying how much they love living there and how happy they are to be in a safe community. So as the neighborhood group, we very much support this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Peter Brown?
Did Jill use this one? Hi, I'm Peter Brown, employee of the City of Ventura Social Services Division Manager. Been working with Supervisor Long on this project, not necessarily the El Patio, but the 10-year strategy for over a year, and her leadership has been outstanding. And we're going to get to a place where there are 855 units that are delineated in the strategy, and we're talking about 42 or 43 of them today, which leaves us 813 units, hopefully, after today's project is approved. The City of Ventura has thrown $500,000 of home dollars into this project because we believe in it in our downtown. I submit that as we try to cite the other 813 units, that we're going to run into folks, organizations, agencies, businesses, merchants who are against the units. Today you heard from Affinity Bank, who's downtown, who's for it. You heard from a resident who's for it. We've got People Self-Help, who just run outstanding programs and projects up and down the Central Coast. The partnerships that we are creating right now as we pursue the 10-year strategy are beyond what we ever hoped they could be 10 years ago when I first became the division manager for the City of Ventura. We are working so closely with Carol Shulkin and Christy, who've done a fantastic job getting this in front of you. We're working with our friends in Oxnard. We're working with our friends throughout the county. We hope that you support this the way the City of Ventura has. It's in our downtown. It started out as a project that just about everybody was against. Through a lot of work, through a lot of education, through a lot of partnerships, we've got folks on board. Putting workforce housing downtown is so necessary for us, and it's so consistent with our strategy of infill and walkable communities and smart growth. We hope that this is the first of many projects that we partner with the county on as we work forward, and I can't imagine we're going to have very many of these kinds of meetings where we don't have a lot of opposition. So I think this is an interesting first project. We don't have opposition, which is not going to happen as we move forward with the other 813 units.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you. Supervisor Bennett?
Yes, just a few things I'd like to point out. One, for those of you that have been here for a long time, I don't think that 7 or 8 years ago you would have said we would be sitting here partnering with the City of Ventura to locate such a project in downtown Ventura. The life was very different. Projects were being pushed out. The county was viewed as the evil empire putting these kind of projects there, and it's come full circle, and that's a real compliment to the leadership in the City of Ventura, the City Council, City Manager, Peter, everybody else. So that's the first thing I want to say. Two, I don't think this change that Peter talked about would have taken place if it wasn't for Jill. Jill has an amazing ability to get in and confront people who are opponents and show them the error of their ways, right? And that's exactly what she's done, and it's been remarkable. Three, I think we really have to compliment somebody representing the residents to come down here and say, hey, we've checked this out, and this is a good group. As Peter said, that's not what normally happens. It's the residents that are all going to flood the place and tell us that life will end for them if this project ends up getting there. So my compliments to the Calorama Residents Association and stuff. And then to our staff, you don't get them better than Carol in terms of what she's done, and she has great credibility because of her passion for doing it. And then Christy to work on this, Supervisor Long, and all of her leadership on the 10-year plan. But I think a lot of people would say we wouldn't be doing anything with the 10-year plan for a number of years, but because of everybody's effort, we have this opportunity to take a small step to make our contribution for this 10-year plan. So let's get going on these 42 units, and let's get going on the other 813 that Peter talks about out there. And with that, I'd like to be proud to make the motion.
I'll second.
Supervisor Long, you have down to speak?
Yes, I do, and thank you. And thank you to all the speakers. This has been remarkable work that's been done in the community, and I think it's remarkable in a couple of ways, and Supervisor Bennett already noted in that over the years we haven't had a great history with our cities, and trying to get a baseline of understanding and humanity that says the homeless population in our county, we have to work with them to provide programs and services and intervention to prevent them from being homeless. But once we know we have a population that is homeless, we really do need to work regionally to provide them housing. It's a core piece of the 10-year plan. I think we're making great progress already in the 10-year plan in some other areas of how we discharge patients and program collaboration and looking at getting to folks early if they see that they're going to fall out of their mortgage or have problems in paying their rent, and looking at a housing trust fund down the road. This very small piece, and for 3 units in perpetuity, the investment is pennies when you think of the human investment we're making to provide this and to perhaps be the first on the block, along with the partnership of the good folks in the city and our community-based organizations, to raise the bar, to say that we can't just take the 10-year plan and look at numbers, which the numbers are, and this board adopted this plan, is to create 300 additional units of permanent affordable housing for extremely low and very low income families and individuals during the first 5 years of implementing this plan. We knew when we adopted that, and all the jurisdictions adopted it, that it was going to be it is an aggressive strategy. And we have to be able to stand up to that. I think that this is more than just a worthwhile investment. It's a lifetime investment to really help population in our community that needs help.
Okay, Supervisor Parks, you want to go? Okay. I've got some questions. I don't know who's going to answer them, but where does the total funding of this project come from? It sounds like I know where 500,000 comes from.
We have several different funding sources. I have all my different budgets here. We have the MHP program at the state, which is a mental health housing program that's almost $2 million, 1.8. We have tax credits. We're looking at 4% tax credits. We have an AHP application in for, I'm sorry, I have my budget here. I see my construction budget. And of course, we received $500,000 from the city, and we're looking for $150,000 from the county.
Is that the total budget required?
Yes.
That you just talked about?
Yes. Yeah.
So
we have it's 1.888 from MHP, 264 from Federal Home, 500 from the city, 150,000 from here. We actually have to take out a bank loan, our corporation, of a little over 400,000. So it'd be great at some point in this application process if we could make that up. But yeah, we have that, and we're looking at the tax credit equities, about $3 million.
And the private sector, how much have they donated? Is
there isn't private sector outside tax credits.
Okay, I see. And somebody said this county was going to get paid back. I didn't hear that.
Only if we sell the project and it's no longer being used for affordable housing, which I do not anticipate. So the contract would be written so that the $150,000 would come back to the county.
Mr. Foy, yeah, I think it was a speaker that said that.
Yeah, that's right.
It hasn't come from staff or anything else. We're not going to get paid.
And why would we sell the project? I mean,
we would have no reason to sell the project. But in the olden days, so to speak, when you had tax credit projects, you kept it affordable for 10 years and then it went to market. With a nonprofit such as ours, we will never sell it. We will keep it affordable in perpetuity.
Okay. Okay, those are my questions. Supervisor Parks?
I was just going to say that to me this is even better than new development because you have a win-win of taking an older building and being able to renovate it, and so it adds to the community, have a nicer building out of it, and then being able to get permanent, very affordable housing, I think is obviously a huge win. And I do very much appreciate the effort that everyone has made for this. I think it's a great example of the county sharing in with the cities in order to provide permanent, very low affordable housing. And I hope to see this elsewhere too in the county. So my appreciation to the effort that you have done, and I hope this succeeds.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Okay.
And this
All
passes.
right.
Only because it was state funded. I went along with it. I know. Well, so I'm saying, if we don't, if the rest of the taxpayers of the state are going to do, I'll go along with it. If we're going to just do individual nonprofits, I won't. But, okay. I know that's why our friend left. 11 o'clock. answers. Yep. You ready? Okay, we'll come back into session. We have one announcement out of closed session, and this is concerning number 25. We're excited about this. The Board of Supervisors voted 4-0 to reappoint Noel Claiborne to the office of County Council for the new term, commencing April 1st, 2008. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, board members. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's
We appreciate all you do.
a 4-year term, is that right?
4 years. 4-year term. Did you hear that, public? 4 years. So if there's any retirements early, we know that's... Anyway, so thank you. Look forward to working with you for another 4 years. Okay. All right. We're going to move on then to item number... Which one is it? 26? All right. Are you ready?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Ms. Robinson. Thank you very much for reappointing Mr. Claiborne. We have I'm not kidding. We are so happy to have him there. We have a great working relationship with your office. I just thank the board for reappointing you. It's, we give them a lot of work, so. And Noel knows who we are. We are here today, very happy to be here. I have to say I'm a little disappointed we don't have more public here because we did quite a bit of announcing. However, we are here with the next iteration of the public access improvements for the harbor. The last time you saw it, we were just into general policies. Today there are quite a few pictures. The consultant team is here, all represented in the front row. Kathy from WRT is going to be doing the main presentation, so I will sit down. The goal today, though, just so you know, is for us to get your feedback and tell us if this is the right direction, and we need to get pretty specific about that because the next step will be to wrap this up into a design guideline, a formal design guideline, which is already in draft pending your changes, so that that can be circulated to the public and come back here for your approval. So if there are changes that you'd like to see, things that you don't like, we would really appreciate hearing that today. And if you need more time, then, tell us that too.
Thank you, Supervisors. I'd like to go through and follow along with the PowerPoint here of both an understanding of where we've been and also what our preliminary recommendations are for the overall concept as well as specific elements from signage and lighting to the walkways and parks, as well as our infrastructure improvements, and then conclude with understanding from you what your concerns are, as well as your endorsement of any items so that we can go ahead and bring this back to you for final approvals. Starting off with the overall concept, we felt it was very important in the harbor to develop a design framework, something that every decision can be made off of. And that design framework really responds to what is unique about Channel Islands Harbor, in that it speaks to the natural history and the cultural history, the Chumash, as well as the maritime traditions that were present there, and also that it exemplifies the islands that many people actually don't have access to, but some are visible from the harbor, or at least from the edges of the harbor. So we'd like to make sure that that is the predominant theme that percolates through all of our decision making, and you'll see that come up time and time again. We'll start with the waterside walkway. We are proposing a continuous walkway around the harbor. It will be waterside for the majority of the harbor, stepping back only where there is sensitive maintenance or the Harbor Patrol, Coast Guard, that sort of things. We're looking at 10 feet on average as the width and having it expanded so that there is seating areas alongside as well as areas for planted lighting and a uniform theme throughout. We also wanted to look at Victoria Avenue because, as you well know, Victoria Avenue is a very inhospitable place for the pedestrian as well as the bicycle. However, a number of improvements could be easily made that would include an actual sidewalk area to define the pedestrian realm, street trees and planting to shade the pedestrian circulation, and a definitive area for bikes so that the many people that do use it will have a much more pleasant environment in which to walk,
as well as have additional people use that connection. Now I'd like to move on to the various different parks and open spaces in the harbor. We wanted to make sure that they were all accessible from the promenade, that children's play was throughout the harbor, and that we interpret the various different islands in each of the parks. So we'll start at the very south end at Harbor and Ocean Drive, which we're calling Channel View Park because it is right there on the channel. And it is inspired by Anacapa Island, which you can see from it. Currently, and I'm going to try my little pointer there, a parking lot is the majority of the park right along the water's edge. We'd like to see the area evolve into transforming the parking area into actual green space, relocating that parking back on the street so that there is still the same amount of parking. We're just not duplicating the amount of pavement, and building a viewing platform or deck that looks out over Anacapa Island and down the channel. So looking at that now currently, as you can see, the parking at the forefront transforms into parking with an interpretive plaza, play areas, picnic tables in both the sun and the shade, and enhanced landscape. As we move north along the west side of the harbor, we come to what we're calling Harbor View Park, which is divided actually into a northern and southern section. So addressing the south first, it's inspired by Santa Cruz Island and currently is just an open grassland. We're looking to transform that area, still maintaining the connections to the various different slips from the parking lot, but into a demonstration garden of the plant material of the Channel Island, something like a botanical or interpretive garden. I think so. Yes. Okay.
I have a question on this slide. I don't see we're doing any reduction in the parking area there. Is that being evaluated
That will
separately?
be presented in a separate
Okay.
slide, yes. And moving along to the north, the area here is near where the farmers market is currently used. Again, a flat panel of grass. Much of the community talked about having a little bit more relief, changes in topography, and we've looked at designing both an area for a large adventure playground as well as mounding with picnic areas in the various different portions of the park. Again, the illustration of that would show in our existing conditions the entry is predominantly into a pump station, but looking at how we could reconfigure that so that the pedestrian now has priority, signage takes front and center, and that the parkland is designed into a children's play area that is reminiscent of some of the Chumash villages. As we move up to Channel Islands Boulevard, there is a vacant piece of land underneath the bridge on the slope there that is used informally for dog walking and actually could be a wonderful park area. By there we go. By looking at how we could treat that slope into an active area for people to congregate and view out over the harbor, we'd have a much more inviting and enjoyable place along the connection there. Here is a picture of it currently, looking rather desolate, and envisioned in the future when we're actually able to capture this land as an active recreation area. As we move south along the peninsula, Peninsula Park is inspired by Santa Rosa Island, a large island that has had many of the Chumash villages. It currently has play, and tennis, and a children's playground, and then a large open area that is used for some of the jazz concerts and some of the community gathering. As we look to develop this, we'd like to structure the open space to be a little bit more accommodating to an amphitheater type event, not that it would be designed as a full amphitheater, but something as an informal gathering, as well as reconfiguring the parking so that we can make sure that it functions properly there. And looking at it in its current condition with the large restroom facility that blocks the channel view, by relocating that back outside of the view shed as it is upgraded and really capturing the liveliness of the harbor, we could create a very wonderful parkland there. As we move over to the east side, Harbor East Park is inspired by San Miguel. This is along Victoria Avenue and just south of the former boat launch. There we're looking at more of a playground inspired by the various shipwrecks and creating a large open lawn area that is visible from the street. Now this park is very hidden. And as you can see, your entry currently is into what I believe are probably some screened off areas of maintenance facilities. And now we could develop that actually into a viewing platform. So everywhere from the street coming into the harbor, you actually see the activities of the harbor. We also looked at remnant areas, 5 areas along the entire harbor that could be converted into little pocket parks, giving a place of respite as someone was to walk around. It's approximately a 4-mile length to walk around the entire harbor, so areas where people could sit would be very, very desirable. We've addressed signage in the same overall hierarchy, including identification signs, directional signs, information, and regulatory. And the color materials and fonts have been built upon what you currently have now, but expanded to make sure that we are using appropriate materials for the harsh marine environment that are also resistant to vandalism. We're looking at using the system of icons so that it is universal in its language, both in terms of directional or activity signs that you see on the bottom, and then more of the interpretive elements that you see on the top. The inspiration for the signage that you will see in this family is built both on the natural history and the maritime history that is so prevalent in the region, and you will see the forms of masts and sails and animal life repeated throughout the various different signs. We also recognize that there's a major storytelling opportunity. There's a rich natural history, either the Chumash or the shipwrecks, as well as the wildlife and whales. So we want to make sure that that is captured in many of our different interpretive signs. So looking at the overall sign family, starting with the gateways and moving into park identification, as well as directional banners and interpretive signs, we have, instead of what could be described as a mishmash of signs, a very comprehensive and concerted effort to make a very identifiable image. We'll look at each one of these separately. The gateway identification sign is our boldest and most interesting in that it evokes the masts and the sails of the harbor, could be kinetic. It exists in the 3 areas that bring you to each of either the west side of the peninsula or the east side. As you see here, the east gateway has a similar image, and at the peninsula, we're slightly scaled down to meet the proportions of that peninsula, but keeps with the exact same family. The park identity signs, very unique, again, pick up that notion of the masts or even a fin of a fish, and can identify each of the parks. It is supported by directional and identification signs, so that information, both interpretive stories as well as some of the regulatory concerns, are brought forward right at that pedestrian level. And then we feel that a very good first start, too, is also implementing a banner program that really picks up on the life and the color of the harbor there, something that could be implemented in the short term, and based on a number of different motifs that really pick up the various different activities that you have. Interpretation can be both on signage, but it also can be incorporated into our benches as well as our pavement. It really makes the entire experience of moving through the harbor something of an educational and of an interest. Telling a story as you walk through would be really exciting. The lighting is also something that was very seriously looked at and addressed, so that it, again, is a comprehensive comprehensive family, much like the signage is. From the larger parking lot fixtures that are low wattage uses, keeping an efficiency, but also making sure that they're very screened, what they're called cutoff fixtures, so that there isn't spillage into either the waterside area, which is a problem for boaters, but also not so there is no spillage into the surrounding neighborhoods. Coming down in scale so that the main entries have a character that then is repeated along the pedestrian level at, again, a lower character, and then supplemented with park and accent lighting in special conditions. Looking overall, we see that the promenade, the waterside walkway, is accented by a continuous band of light. We're proposing a small little blue light on top so that from a distance you can actually see where the pedestrian areas are. This area, these lights could be changed out so that at the water taxi stops, they could have a little yellow light so you would know from a distance where to walk to the water taxi, giving people an additional bit of directional movement there. We've looked closely at the infrastructure systems. Currently, we know that a lot of the drainage conditions need to be readdressed, and especially in that any new improvements obviously have to comply with the current Regional Water Quality Control Board's requirements. But we know that we need to isolate the runoff from the various different areas. And we'll look not just into your typical boxes of that go into drainage systems, but in how we can look at the bioswales. So that we can actually pick up water and filter it into a planted area which cleanses the water before it enters the harbor and is a much more natural way of treating it. You asked about how we would address the parking and if we could look at areas. This is a hypothetical area. We are still looking at that in more detail now. But taking the large sea of parking that you see there, looking at efficiencies in the striping, which is now being assessed, but looking at areas where we can increase the planted areas so we can capture that runoff so that we can actually have both. We're coming up with the criteria of the stall sizes so that we can accommodate both the larger vehicles that would be pulling boats as well as the more standard cars, and incorporating these biofilters. We would also propose a rehabilitation of the concrete areas, the walkways, the curbs, and gutters. This would improve not only the access for the boaters, but also improve the entire circulation, and we can do that in conjunction with many of the stormwater improvements. Many of these will be implemented by the various different lessees as they are going ahead with their plans. The maintenance of the actual pavement of the parking lot is a very complex jigsaw puzzle, you might say, of a lot of different responsibilities. And what we feel is important is that we develop a single set of criteria of how parking should be designed so that everyone who is maintaining it is actually operating to a very specific set of design guidelines, as well as increasing the efficiency and allowing for not just correcting the faults, but once it is corrected, really doing a preventative program so we do not find ourselves in the situation where we have large areas of potholes, etc. And with that, I'd like to turn it back to you for your various different comments or questions, and we'd be happy to bring this back to you in a final form.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Good presentation. Any questions? Supervisor Parks?
And not a question, but just I'm really excited about what you showed. I think this is just exactly what the harbor could use to help unite it together, as well as make it a more inviting place to be. I think something that the residents around there could really appreciate too. And particularly when we're seeing so much development now coming to the harbor. These are things, if we get in early, we'll be able to include those in the development plans of the, as the different lessees move on their development projects. So I'm really in favor of this, and this is just what I was thinking about when I was saying we need to really work on the public side of this, the public amenities, and I think you've done a great job.
Supervisor Long?
I agree. I agree. I really like the components of the using some simple things in our history for the educational piece, and to do it via signage, and do it naming pocket parks, and naming some of the areas where we really want the residents to enjoy the relationship we have to the islands and the history of our Channel Islands. We've had this out, and it's been out in the community, and I have to appreciate that you did get a lot of input on this, from what I've heard, and that it becomes somewhat the framework for what goes on next, and to get the community. One of the pieces, my question on the parking lots is that they're just. I'm sure staff can tell us how many times a year are those lots really full. I know we can't eliminate them, but anything we can do to encourage people to walk and ride bikes and come via the water, and to look at the parking lots to soften them so they don't become just an eyesore, over because of lack of maintenance or because they're just this huge big square block that sits out there against this beautiful backdrop. So I like what I see so far. I think it's certainly in the right direction.
Great. Supervisor Bennett?
Thank you. A few things. One, overall, it's certainly exciting to see that. When would we likely to have cost estimates for this, and what's the likely funding plan? Is this going to be?
Yeah, there are several parts, Supervisor Bennett, there are several parts and pieces to this. Susie, who's sitting in the audience, is working on an update of our 10-year capital plan. You might recall that when we did the lease work, and I see we have the one lessee who has the most pavement on his leasehold is here today. In terms of the promenades, the lessees will be building out the sections. It's in their lease that they are required, whatever design guidelines are adopted here in the next few months. That's why we've been moving. I have to thank Marilyn here today, moving at kind of a breakneck pace with this to make sure we stay ahead of the development submissions. So the promenades, the great bulk of those will be done by the lessees. Now, in the case of Mr. Nam and Mr. Butler, we might be coming back to talk about that because they are the only ones that have 1,500 feet both on the water and on the street side, and on Victoria they're starting from nothing. So it's going to be a very big expense, and we might look at what that means for them. But that's predominantly lessees. With the parks, we're thinking that we need to do a phased implementation plan, and it might be done over a number of years. I have to say, there are obviously a number of consultants here, lighting, signage, and they have really worked with us in terms of, for example, being able to reuse existing light poles with new fixtures that will make them look entirely different. And that's helping us a lot. But my guess is we're going to have to do pilot areas, and we'll be talking with you when we come back about what those might be, and then spread it out over a 10-year period.
And will we, at some point in time, have some cost estimates of what that would be spread out
Yes.
over those 10 years? Right. Okay, thank you. In terms of the signage that you had there, that you had that gentleman standing there looking at that sign. The question I had was just sort of graffiti issues. It's right there at that prime level. Do we have much of a graffiti problem in the harbor at this point in time? And have you given any thought to how inviting those signs? They certainly look like blackboards to me.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time talking about that. We have seasonal graffiti problems. Right before the summer season, we generally have a big rash right before Memorial Day. And then at odd times during the year, pretty predictable. I don't know if the signage consultant wants to say anything, but we've talked about the coatings to the signs and all the things that we can do to protect those. We're concerned about vandalism as well, and that was a big question.
Right, okay. In the very first park, that that showed, maybe it was the second park, the park that is all the way at the end that you said you're going to have an elevated section to be able to look out over the harbor. There's a structure right next to that. Are we going to be blocking that structure's view? Was my question. I assume you've paid attention to that all the way through. Right. Okay. I am particularly attracted to Victoria, which is very unattractive, and although I agree it'd be very expensive, it is a very valuable improvement to Victoria there in terms of that. So I like that that part of it also. I think your themes, both sticking with the Channel Islands parks, but the constant sort of ship mast kind of look like a very good unifying theme in a harbor that has difficulty feeling unified, right, with its unusual setup and stuff. So, well done. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have another question, if I might. And thinking of that theme with the ship mass and how does that come into, and I know we're going to see the Fisherman's Wharf subject in a couple weeks, so I expect you looked at that theme and how it all ties in. On the Victoria side, where is there an opportunity to talk to our partners from the city of Oxnard to assist us with that Victoria side for the economic vitality benefit for all of us?
Yes, there has already been one visit with the city. The original 1963 agreement calls for park improvements and things like this kind of sidewalk to be shared on a 50-50 basis. Now, when we did Kitty Beach, you remember we didn't get anywhere near that. It was more like 2080 or 1585 or something like that. And we were not the 15, we were the 85 side of the deal. So that is something that merits some discussion. If the city is intending to keep its name on the parks, then perhaps they'll want to invest here as well. We sure hope so.
Great. Can I ask, I noticed that when I went through this, you've done some great design. I like how the different parks have different names based on the islands, and it's going to be great. It also helps people, and where are you? I'm over at this park, or this. It's great. Some of this, like I look at this Chumash Village and those, are we going to, with what you're doing, it looks great, but are we going to have a high maintenance cost to maintain this? Because, 5 years, 10 years down the line, we're just going to be sitting here with big expense, or have we tried to make this so it's somewhat low maintenance?
That was a major goal. And in looking at materials, berms are not expensive to maintain. Right. We have to keep them low enough for security. But the idea is to attract families and young people and children in. We've heard a lot of discussion over the last 5 to 7 years about how these are parks. And if they're parks, we should make them attractive to all the public. And so that's,
I agree.
But we are trying to do low maintenance.
Yes, right. Yes, sir.
I realized I had this thought the other day when I was driving, and it just came back to me right now. But the great ones have some great attraction, and since we're in the brainstorming phase here, or at least I am in the brainstorming phase, is there any possibility of some kind of aerial ride or something that would link the one side of the harbor to the other and be a real attraction for people coming? And I know you've got issues with height and all that, but I'm talking about a big, I would wonder if some business might be interested in that. But the minute you put that Ferris wheel, there, or you put but something like that would do two things. It would link the two sides of the harbor together, but it would also all of a sudden be a real revitalization and stuff. And so I just wanted to throw it out there for discussion purposes amongst your staff. There's not anything.
You mean like a tram or something?
Yeah, a tram, some kind of sky car, some kind of,
Or a cannon.
Yeah, shoot you over there, right? Exactly. Right. And depending on who it is, we could kind of adjust the cannon a little bit, right, one way or the other, right, in terms of where we wanted them to end up, right? But anyway, I just want to throw it out. I think while we're at this phase, and there may be some developer that's interested, there may be lots of people down there that might be interested because of what it could do for them if it was the right thing. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, but that's a good point, because people are attracted to come for something, and then they continue to come back, and it brings the restaurants. It makes everything else more successful. It's a good point. don't know what they allow you to do, but there's no limits, I guess. Supervisor Long?
Oh, well, just thinking on that. In the community meetings, did you hear from any of the community? Was there, I don't want to send them down a path that they've already heard from people that say, don't bring an amusement park down here. I've been to Balboa, to the island, and there's the fun zone across the waterway, and you take the ferry over to it when my son was little, and it was great, and I thought it was great, and it'd been there for years, and it's now closed. And I know I don't think you're thinking of that level of but something that's a signature attraction.
Just 3 comments I want to make. Well, number one, I wouldn't be thinking about a fun park and all that. I'm talking about one thing. I mean, I think this kind of park use is what we're really looking at, sort of passive, people come and use it. One thing, and as much as anything, it linked the harbor together, which is one of the problems that the harbor has. So I'd only think of it as one thing. And 2, I'm only talking. I don't know that I would like the idea. So I'm not out there pushing the idea at all. I just kind of wanted to bring it up for maybe they dismiss it in 10 minutes. And that's fine. I only wondered whether, for example, it's good for you to say, maybe somebody's already brought it up and we find out that people really, have strong feelings about it and stuff. But
well, Valentine's Day, in 2 days, we could have gondolas.
Very true. Good point.
I would
Yes,
just
Ms. Parks.
say that you really have some incredible resources there, not only the existing beauty and all that, but the fact that you've got a lot of people who want to invest into the harbor. And I think about the New Hampton Inn being kind of right in the middle of, if you want to be able to have some kind of system to get there, whether it's a ferry or a glass bridge or a cannon, that I would my emphasis would be that you have individuals with money to invest, and that money that they can invest will only help them to make better profits. And looking at the sidewalk along Victoria, to me that's something that everyone who has a business at the harbor are going to benefit. Once we start getting more people there, they will benefit from the amenities. And I would think that they would want to see a lot of this come earlier than phased over a long period of time. And we also have an association of the lessees, which is wonderful to see. And I think some people can step up and begin that kind of fundraising to allow for some matching so that we can move forward on this. I think you have really good resources there to get this kind of thing out there and something that we can all use.
Besides a cannon, a maglev.
Well, I was thinking that, but I didn't want to be so redundant.
Exactly.
I know just the system, too.
Okay. Anything else you want to?
So are we to understand from this that with these, just some additional ideas, things to think about, that we should move on ahead? That's
I think
what I'm
so.
hearing.
I think you did a great job. It looks like you've done a lot of good work. And yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Good. Well, thank you. So I think we have do a motion to receive and file this?
Second.
Well, good. Well, thanks for coming out. And this meeting is adjourned.